Welcome to Let's Bet, the show for folks who love betting on sports but hate losing money. I'll show you how to increase your sports betting bankroll by gaining confidence so that ultimately you can have the lifestyle that you deserve. I'm your host, Scott Pritchard, professional sports bettor full-time for the past 31 years, founder of Pritchard'sPicks.com, took third place in the Circa Invitational 1 year ago, and you can find me each weekend in Las Vegas in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We're broadcasting live in beautiful Las Vegas, Sin City, each and every Friday from 1 to 1:30 on demand on Pritchard'sPicks.com and on your favorite podcast video distribution platforms. To reach out to us, simply email us at letsbet@pritchardspicks.com. That's letsbet@pritchardspicks.com. Now let's get started. My guest this week, sports betting expert, formerly of ESPN. This guy last year in the Circa Millions, over 5,200 entries, contestants, tied for 14th. In addition to that, boys and girls, this guy tied for 14th in the Superbook contest at Westgate. In the studio, there are no ties. He's number one. Please welcome my friend, sports betting expert, Doug Kezirian. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, man. Good to be with you here in studio. I appreciate the invite, and I'm psyched to chop it up. I know we got a lot of good topics on the docket, and obviously a busy time of year with football.
You know, one thing I wanted to ask you right out of the gate, you know, you were one of those guys, sharp guys, you were on the dog when Boston College took on Florida State a couple of weeks ago. The line opened 21, was bet down to 16. All the money, all the action, all the sharp action on Boston College plus 16. You cashed a big fat ticket. My opening question would be, because I love and respect you and your analytics, why would you take plus 16 when you could have had plus 21?
It's a good question. I actually wrote a column about it the day of the game, and I think it's a friendly reminder to everyone how nuanced this space is. And you obviously have to respect the betting market. And to your point, you want to be ahead of the market move. If you just tail bets, it's not a proven form of success, because really you're tailing people that aren't betting anymore, because they bet it at 20. They bet it at 17.5. They bet it at 17. But once it got to 16, they stopped betting, and you're tailing people who aren't betting at plus 16. But I felt, and again, heavily nuanced, so all these variables matter, such as it's early in the season, as in week one. Therefore, the market is extremely soft in college football. We don't even have the preseason, right? We had one game for Florida State in week 0, so that was a data point. So the fact that it was 20 and change in the summer, it really, I mean, it's not apples to oranges, but it's not apples to apples either, because the power rating had adjusted and we had learned. It's not the same, but the same concept. It's like knowing your first card in a blackjack hand. Like, you know something that you didn't know prior to the hand. So I would say, seeing how bad DJU played, the unknown of Norvell with all the moving pieces out the door and things like that. Granted, it was a rain-soaked game in Dublin and things like that, but we found out information. So much like live betting after maybe a quarter in an NFL game, when information changes, you can't just look at a number as black and white saying, oh, I could have had this, so therefore it's a bad bet because I'm not getting the best of the number. But all things aren't equal in this situation. For example, the Florida State, there was a data point out there. So it's fluid and it's nuanced. But, obviously you look smart because BC wins outright. But ultimately, you do want to be able to beat the market and not take bad numbers. Long run, that's a way to win at this racket.
I like my question, but I love your answer. Well said. You know, it's kind of applicable to baseball. We always say that good pitching always stops good hitting sometimes. We have to be flexible. You have to be a bit of a chameleon, right?
Exactly. Well said. I might have to steal that, but I won't plagiarize. I'll footnote you.
I appreciate that. So tell me, how did you get started in sports betting?
Well, there's definitely tiers of this. So I grew up the youngest of 5 brothers and was very much into sports. I always joked that I never watched cartoons growing up because I never was strong enough to keep the remote. My brothers always took it in Lakers, Showtime era, growing up in L.A., but I loved it. And I woke up and would watch Mel Allen This Week in Baseball on Saturdays at 10 a.m. I didn't want to watch cartoons. So I was just very into baseball all these years, or very into sports all these years. And then I remember the Patriots-Bears beatdown Super Bowl. One brother was taunting the other one because he won a bet for $5 at one guy. One of my brothers had the Bears minus the points. And so I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. So not really knowing that there were point spreads on everything every day all throughout the year, I thought only Super Bowls had point spreads. So I waited patiently for the entire year, and I wanted in on the action the following Super Bowl, and I took the Broncos +7, and they got smoked. But I was hooked, so to speak. And that was, I was in 3rd or 4th or 5th grade, something like that. And then later on in high school, I got into it. I was just always fascinated with the numbers of it and then the action, clearly. At the time, I didn't understand dopamine and everything. But, looking back, I just loved the action and the rooting interest of a game and sort of the bragging part. Like I outsmarted the market and the numbers and my friends or whatever. But it was fun, like pick'em leagues. I remember being in 8th grade. I was in my buddy's dad's pick'em league. I helped do picks, and we were a team or whatever with his law firm, and it was just so fun. Obviously I was a Raider fan. I cared about those games, but it gave me action, so to speak, on every game, and I just loved it. And then I went into broadcasting, being a sports fan, and my TV career took me through various cities. And in 2005, I moved to Las Vegas, and I was the local sports anchor here in town, and did some radio as well at ESPN 1100. And this was no Golden Knights, no Raiders. Mayweather was still fighting at the Thomas and Mack. The local team was sports betting, kind of like in San Antonio, everything's the Spurs. I'm sure every local sportscast is the Spurs all the time. So I covered it like a beat. And if there was a bad beat in a big game, I would run 15-second highlight in my sportscast. I gave picks on my highlight. I interviewed odds makers. I interviewed pro bettors. And then throughout my 7 years of living here, I just kind of immersed myself in the space. I developed a Rolodex. I developed contacts. I got into betting myself. I learned a lot. I gleaned a lot of wisdom from some really sharp guys, our mutual friends. And, I kind of got my PhD, so to speak, in betting, and then went to ESPN. And then within ESPN, I pivoted to betting. We launched the show, Daily Wager, and then we came out here, had the studio, and I just been stayed in the betting space all throughout. And I just love it. I'm an econ major, so I just love the sports. I llove the numbers part of it as well.
Very interesting background. I have to say that I cannot remember what I did 3 hours ago. God forbid what I did yesterday. But when you mentioned the Patriots Bears, I remember back in 85, 86, January, the Super Bowl, it was a 10-point spread. The Bears win 46-10. The next year you talked about the Broncos -7. They lost to the Giants and Phil Simms. I remember that as well. But again, just don't ask me what I did a couple hours ago.
Well, and that's the beauty of it, the juices that are flowing throughout that 3-hour game. And, of course, that Bears Super Bowl was the famous prop bet Super Bowl with the fridge scoring the touchdown. And, that's sort of a big catapulted the popularity of prop bets. So I'm kind of synonymous. It catapulted my interest in sports betting.
What do you enjoy most about sports betting?
I think it's the action, but I'm not an action junkie anymore per se. But I do love just the intricacies of it. It's the market, it's the competitive juices, the action. But I also think it's instant reward. I mean, much like people like day trading or the stock market, I just love it all. I love the fact that being a sports fan and understanding aspects of sports and being able to poke holes in the nonsense of narratives and sports talk radio, conventional sports talk radio, enables you to monetize and make money off it in a direct way and a fairly quick way, 3 hours or so.
I love it. It's a great dopamine hit. If you see something before it happens, you're out in front of the marketplace, and then you see it move the way you want, and ultimately the bottom line is the bottom line, ultimately, that you win and you cash your ticket. I'm big on CLV, closing line value. If I can lay 3.5 on Tuesday and it closes 5, win, lose, or draw, I know long term, Doug, I'm going to be a successful long term winner. What are your thoughts on closing line value?
Yeah, the principle for sure. If you're getting the worst of the number, you're never going to win. But I do think it's one of those things where it's kind of all or nothing. It's much like the math guys when they have a mathematical edge. You got to bet it every single time, like in baseball or something. You can't just pick and choose your times. That's why they're married to their model, so to speak, because A, it works, and B, I understand it. It's kind of like the MIT blackjack philosophy. If you have that edge and the card counting is your way, you can't only pick and choose times to follow it. You're like, well, I was feeling like it wasn't my turn yet. No, none of that. You have to stick to it. So if you bet across the board CLV, you're going to win long term. My issue personally, it's not really an issue. It's just that I'm so selective with my volume that some days I'll have one play, sometimes zero, some days three. Like I happen to have a bunch of WNBA tonight, but it's a big card. I think there's 5 games. But I have very small action on the college games tonight. You know, a ranked matchup. There's 2 big college football games. So I'm very selective. So I have to, sometimes CLV is pointless if you're only picking, you know, one thing, one aspect of a giant card.
Well, that's a great point. When you have 2 games a la tonight, as opposed to 60, 70, 80 games, sides, totals, money lines, first half, second half. I'm a buffet guy. You may not know that to look at me, but I like a myriad of options. So give me a Saturday card and I'll pick my spot my picks, and try not to pick my nose.
That's our advantage, right? The house gets the plus 110 in theory. We get to pick and choose. And so last night I was involved in a halftime live bet, things like that. But then Tua goes down, and I know Skylar Thompson. He's a fade. He's terrible. So I was betting under. I couldn't get enough of the live under once it was over 1 score. So the game was sitting 41. And so they had 50.5. They had 48.5. And that's the time to pounce. It made me feel stupid for even betting anything earlier in the game when you don't have. But that's the beauty. Those are the opportunities you have to capitalize on. That's our advantage, while they get the built-in house advantage. I
really appreciate you bringing that up, because their job, respectfully, is a lot harder than yours and mine, because we can pick our spots, spot our picks, be selective. They proactively have to post a number and opinion on anything and everything.
Right, but they're also getting two-way action. That's the beauty. I think I remember talking to an odds maker when load management in the NBA really ratcheted up. I was asking, why are you even posting a point spread overnight? You know, with James Harden so uncertain, and he obviously influences the point spread tremendously. They're like, well, we're going to get two-way action. We don't care. The issue is who the bettors, right? They may take -4 and it closes +3 if he's out. So yes, they get the built-in advantage, but they're also getting two-way on a lot of that stuff, and they can obviously adjust the market. So there is there's market correction.
What do you think are some of the mistakes a lot of losing sports bettors make?
So it's funny. I do a lot of individual coaching / seminars, and it's actually really helpful for me because I've forgotten the bad stuff, right? I've I've gone from orange belt to purple belt, whatever the sequence is. It's really the expensive habit component to it. Much like I was talking, I should really have just waited all day until an opportunity presents itself where the market's just out of whack, Tua going down when they're down 3 touchdowns. And it makes you realize how bad some of the other bets and how coin flippy they are, right? I think it's, Barkley would say this when he was talking about the casino. He's like, when you're an elite athlete, a Hall of Famer, your whole life you've been able to control the outcome of events. You try harder, you go after the ball harder, and your talent just kind of takes over. And that's been the hardest thing for him to realize. No matter how hard he tries or how much he bets on slots or the roulette wheel or whatever, he ain't changing the outcome. The math is the math, and the outcome is the outcome. So in betting, you control what you bet. So there's a misconception. A lot of novice recreational bettors think that they're sort of in control, but they're letting their blurred vision is the issue, because they're not being as selective as they should because of the expensive habit component to it all.
Well, we've talked about what you enjoy most about sports betting. We've talked about how losing players tend to lose. Winners tend to win. Losers tend to lose. This has been my experience. I know because I've been on both sides of the equation. Sure. But one thing I wanted to ask you is, on the coin, on the flip side of that, what are some of the frustrations that you are challenged with when it comes to sports betting?
Well, I think it's a common one, getting limited, right? So on the app at 6 books, I can only bet $5. A couple of them will let me go in person, but it's the limitations, and I get where they're coming from, but it should be reasonable, and that's the tough part, because I've been down the other path and gotten stiffed, so that's no fun. And then I've had money confiscated, even legal books in other states. Obviously, Nevada gaming, much more reputable and fair. I think in general, as a sports bettor, I would say the bad beats, obviously, you always forget the lucky wins too. I get it. I do think I've done pretty well just managing a portfolio throughout the game with in-game wagering and being able to soften my positions and alt lines and things like that. But there is sometimes you're just hung on a big position and things like completely like a Tua getting hurt or something just completely out of whack happens. I can't tell you how many times I've had a great NBA CLV because a guy's out and then some guy off the bench goes for 50. Stuff like that happens in sports. I get it. But I just wish there was a consolation amount or having an under in an NBA or football game and then it goes to overtime. You should be able to get like 20% of your bet back. Things like that but there's no czar of betting that can just grant you like, all right, you deserve this back. There's no sort of, it's lacks judicious outcome sometimes.
I want to take a second and talk specifically about contests because so many people are so pumped and excited about contests. I mentioned in the intro how well Doug has done most recently here in handicapping football contests here in Las Vegas. As an example, the Circa Survivor, I had a guest on here just a few short weeks ago. He won first place in 2021, $6 million, had to split it 4 different ways. He netted $1.2 million, 5,200 contestants. Today, 14,200 contestants, $14 million plus for winner take all. That's the good news. Bad news, you're doing a 20-team moneyline parlay. You have to go 20-0. Good luck. I've got 4 entries still alive thanks to the Saints and thanks to New Orleans and also actually it was Tampa Bay and also thanks to Seattle as opposed to the Saints. So 4 of my 10 entries are alive and well. The Bungles not happy with how they played in game 1, but I do want to talk specifically about the Circa Millions because my guest Doug tied for 14th in that contest as well. This is my first year competing, 4-1 opening weekend against the number. Golden Nugget contest, 157 people right now. I'm in second, 6 winners, 1 loss, ATS against the spread. But Doug, I want to ask you, how did it feel to come in 14th times 2?
Well, the gambler in me is bitter because one drop pass cost me $110,000. So the Gardner Minshew swing pass on 4th down, that Saturday night game, week 18. Now, it was Saturday night. But
that was the Colts, I think, right?
Correct. Colts and Texans. All the picks were already in because the deadline was earlier in the day. And so later, you had the spreadsheet out because obviously it's week 18. And I went back and figured out if he had caught that, what would have happened. I would have won $110,500 more.
Wow.
So it's painful. I won $33,500, which is great. But 110 swing is a big one. So it's painful looking back on it, but it's also rewarding, and it's a badge of honor, undoubtedly. And I've done well in some contests the last few years. And I think as someone like myself who came up, at least from a mainstream perspective, as a talking head, blah, blah, blah. And we live in a society where no one can be good at 2 things. And everyone wants to summarize someone in a Facebook status update. And just being able to demonstrate that I have a skill set. And the thing I always say, there's people who are fathers and family men, and well, I'm not. So are you saying if I can't be good at 2 things, then you can't be a good employee and parent? Because that's 2 jobs, right? So why can't I do 2 jobs well if I'm a bachelor? And that's my pushback.
So the winnings in the 2 contests total, tied for 14th in the Superbook, tied for 14th at the Circa Millions. How much total did you win, if you don't mind me asking?
Like 37. The Westgate has chopped up their prizes so much.
Into quarter prizes, yeah.
And even more. So I actually didn't even participate this year. It's kind of like that was disheartening. I thought that at least top 20 should get a little bit more and things like that. I was in the William Hill College contest 2 years ago. 50% of the pot goes to first place.
I like that. Usually it's 40%.
Okay. I mean, I had 2 top 5 finishes, so I did really well. I had $58K in that, which was awesome. But, like I said, the gambler in me will always be that one drop pass here and there. But it's awesome, and we're all trying to get the big cash, and like you talked about Survivor, that'd be awesome. But it's also for me just to earn my, that credibility, because people in the Las Vegas community knew I've been immersed in this space for a couple decades plus. But people who know me through the ESPN platforms and then launching, they thought I was just some random guy already employed at ESPN who just happened to be a host who was all of a sudden doing betting analysis. But no, it just worked out that I was already there, and I had this track record and background.
Yeah, we're talking about contests specifically right now with the Golden Nugget, the Superbook, and of course Circa Survivor and the Circa Millions with over 20,000 entries. Circa also has, it's the world's largest, the world's best sports book. And I bring this up because my guests and I both last year by invite only competed in the Circa Invitational. We both have been respectfully asked back to compete again this year. They've expanded the field from 16 to 25. And as Fezzik says, the only winner back-to-back in the Superbook contest, he specifically said 2 years ago when he took 15th out of 16th, and I'm not throwing him under the bus because I have the utmost respect for him,
right.
His words that it's tough because I am doing many things Friday between noon and 5, but I'm not betting between noon and 5. I'm betting early, I'm betting late, but per that contest, the invitational that you and I are competing in, it's hard. There are no half point and a half's the best of it. So again, your thoughts on that contest. I love it.
Well, like you said initially, it's an honor to be included. And I went top 8 back-to-back years, so I was able to get in it a third straight time. And I was in first place, I swear, from like mid-October, a couple years ago, mid-October to like mid-December. And went like week 16-ish, and then I just, I finished like 5th or something. I think I was 3rd going in the final weekend. I went sort of contrary and took bad numbers. There is a little game theory involved with all these contests, and it's prestigious. Like there's some big hitters in there that, a couple guys went 6-1 last week, and it is tough. But and it's 7 plays. Now you get college and NFL, and come December you have to do 7. Now you get sides and totals, but it's tough for someone like me who may only like a few plays. But it's definitely there's no layups in there, right? There's no dead money like maybe the bigger contests have. Like 45 people did not turn in their Circa picks last week for the Survivor. Can you imagine that? But yeah, there's no dead money in this pool for sure.
I want to talk to you about before I get to your best bets for the weekend, I'll also share mine. But before we get to that, I want you to share with our viewers what you would say, Doug, are the top 3 skills you must perfect to be a successful, long-term winning sports bettor.
Well, I'll talk about it from my perspective, someone who does not model, but I respect the math, I respect the market, things like that. But as someone who's essentially an eye test or / information guy and who kind of looks at it through the sports prism, I will say the number one thing that I've over time learned is just remember there is someone on the opposite side of your play who really loves it, that play, that bet. So no matter how much you love it, you got to see things through the other perspective and just play a little devil's advocate with yourself. And they could be wrong, but just understand how they're seeing it and maybe why they're seeing it their way. And then that helps you even maybe feel better about your own side because they may be weighing the backup quarterback not enough or whatever it may be. And I think the other thing is don't let these arbitrary sample sizes / timelines bother you. Like don't worry about being up at the end of every week. Don't be worried. Don't be, who cares if you're down going into the night game? You don't need to chase sort of stuff. That's stuff I learned earlier, but don't be influenced by that's a random sort of arbitrary sample size. I know plenty of sharp guys who've had losing baseball seasons or losing football seasons. Now, multiple seasons over the eternity, that's a different story, but things can go bad your way. You don't have to make bad situations even worse. And I think in general, money management is really important. Over time, that takes time to kind of fully understand. People were like, oh, to use 1% of your bankroll, half a unit, all that stuff. But I would say just in general, especially for people who are earlier in their lifespan of betting, is bet what you can afford to lose, not what you want to win.
I like that. I do want to expand on his first point when it comes to betting a game. Understand there is somebody or countless others who like the other side. So no matter how much you like a specific game based on a point spread or a total, understand on your best day, a 60% handicapper on your best day, you can make a real good living at 55%, 52.4% is break even. But on your best day, where you feel you have a 60% winner, there's a 40% chance it's going to lose. So think twice before you bet your house, your car, your wife, your girlfriend. I'm telling you, don't ask me how I know. Before we get to your best bets and my best bets for college and pro for the weekend, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Ace Wellerstein, professional UFC handicapper. I'm on the Scott Pritchard Let's Bet show, and if you want to bet sports and you want to win, you go with Scott Pritchard. Feel me?
Love hearing from my good buddy Ace Wellerstein, UFC master bettor. Last week on this show, gave out 2 plays, 2 winners. Winner, steak and lobster dinner. Are you kidding me? Big event tomorrow, Sphere, Las Vegas. He has 1 play, 1 time. It's not how many you bet, it's how many you win. Alexa Grasso, minus $130 in the title fight co-main event. Lay the juice. See the cashier. Compliments of Ace. Doug Kezirian, best bets, Saturday, Sunday. Who do you like and why?
I like Indiana minus the 3 at UCLA. I don't think it's going to be too big of a moment, and I'm not too worried about laying points on the road. Sometimes these are great spots to go against a team. Oh, the market's adjusted too much. Earlier in the summer, this number would have been pick or +3. I think we've learned about UCLA. I knew that they were a fade. Everyone, I'm sure you and I both know, was under on their win total coming into the season, even before that Big Ten media day with Deshaun Foster and where we are in LA. They just don't have the horses. They lost a lot. And Indiana, with their coach coming over, they have a bunch of transfers as well. They have a higher-powered offense. I like the quarterback from the MAC. I think they're going to put up plenty of points, and I don't think the Bruins can hang with them. And remember, this is not an on-campus stadium. It's a beautiful Rose Bowl, but this is not like a ruckus crowd. You're not going into Death Valley here. So I think it'll be fine for an Indiana afternoon game, laying 3. We're good with the Hoosiers.
Indiana minus 3. How about 1 or 2 more picks if I could?
Yeah, team total, all right?
Sure,
so
you bet. Yeah,
I'm going to go under. It's now 29.5. I liked it a little better, obviously, at 30.5. But Oklahoma, this is like, for those Seinfeld fans, it's a bizarro Oklahoma team. Great defense, bad offense. And that's not the Sooners that you and I know. Bad O-line. They can't move the ball. Jackson Arnold's mediocre at best at QB. A lot of NFL defensive players on that defensive side of the ball. Tulane is slow with the ball, pace-wise. I don't think the Sooners are going to be able to score that many points. They barely scored on Houston. I think under 29.5 team total. And last one is the Houston Texans. Sunday Night Football. I know really sharp money group came in at -6 at 6.5. I think they're going to kind of name their scores. Bears with a rookie quarterback. You have to learn how to play off wins and with success. Detroit showed us last year they weren't really that good at it. I don't think the Bears have the maturity and professionalism yet to come off a win and go on the road. And I think Houston will be ready to rock both sides of the ball.
How can people find you?
Thank you. Yeah, so at Doug Kezirian is my X handle and also Instagram. And then the company I'm working at, our platform is called onlyplayers.com. You see it on the screen there. We have quick 60 to 90-second videos, a lot of breakdowns of a bunch of games. We have subscription. But I mentioned it earlier, a lot of individual sessions. I'll do private Zoom sessions, a lot of Slack channel kind of work. I think we as a sports betting culture need to expand the offerings out there, kind of like content, the podcast form. I want to be able to work with people and share the insight and sort of knowledge build, because I know there are a lot of sports bettors trying to glean wisdom, and content space isn't the only way to do it.
Doug was kind enough to share not 1, not 2, but 3 best bets for the weekend. I will share 1 play, 1 time. It's not how many you bet, it's how many you win. Less is more. Pride myself on being highly selective. Looking at an NFL game on Sunday, the Detroit Lions hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As you know, not a big Dan Campbell fan, not a big Jared Goff fan, and I can prove my point. No lead is safe if these 2 clowns are your leaders. They proved it in the NFC Championship game. Up double digits, lost to the Niners. Last week, against my better judgment, laid the points with the Lions. Up 17-3, second half, looking good, feeling good. Even I cannot find a way to lose this game, only to find myself, I blinked and I'm down 20-17, only to catch a miracle win by winning an OT by 6. I never make apologies for when I win, and I certainly own my losses. I like the dog, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers +7 and a Dr. Hook. See the cashier. I'd like to thank my guest, Doug Kezirian, formerly of ESPN sports betting expert. Loved having you on the show. You'll be back, my friend.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invite, and I was lucky on the lines as well last week.
I like it.
It's good
I like
to
it.
get those once in a while.
Luck is the residue of design. The harder I work, the luckier I am. For Doug Kezirian, I'm Scott Pritchard, founder of Pritchard'sPicks.com. Tune in each and every Friday, 1 to 1:30 Las Vegas time for Let's Bet. Also on my site, Pritchard's Pick of the Day. One low price, more content, more plays, one low monthly fee. For Doug Kezirian, formerly of ESPN, I'm Scott Pritchard. Thanks for tuning in, and until next week, see the cashier.